Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. And you have an unusual sort of a program this evening. We're having Paul come on with his wife and daughter. And about a month ago, he was on with somebody else. And we talked about the same subject, and it was so delightful and so pleasing, not just to me and my crew, but we decided to have them back on again because it seems like things related to high-stakes testing is so plentiful. They need a lot of attention. So we'll be talking about that some more, and look for the future when we'll do some more stuff, because we got to follow up on this. It's so terribly important. And I'm working at calming down because I'm always so nervous, and I've been doing this for 17 years. And how are you now, Paul?
I feel pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Good to see you.
Thank you for having us back.
Gentleman.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you're Sally.
Yes. Hi.
Hey, nice to meet you. Are you nervous?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm not myself. And how's Jan?
Great.
Are you nervous?
Great. Of course.
Oh, wonderful. And you're not nervous?
No, I'm not for some strange reason.
Weird, isn't he?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Good to see you again, and good to get going with what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I can't wait to hear the rest of the story because there's so much to talk about. As you know, the show goes in two major segments. The bio segment, where I talk to my guests about who they are kind of personally, so you have an idea where they're coming from when they say what they're saying, to do with the show. The cost of high-stakes testing, the cost of high-stakes testing. So let's see. Starting with the bio segment, shall we do you first, and you know what we talked about last time, or shall I ask you the same questions all over again?
I pretty much remember. I remember saying I love jam.
That's
and
good.
You pulled that out of me. And
Of course, you didn't want to do it.
Yeah, you have a lot. You asked me about my education. I'd like to enhance that just a little bit, because not only in the degree area, but also I'd like to share with people that I'm basically trained as a rural educator, have worked in rural areas in Idaho all my career, and during that time I've been a special education teacher, I've been a school counselor and a school psychometrist and a director of special education and a principal preschool all the way through. We used to do adult ed also, so we had the whole spectrum there, and it was a neat milieu that we were working in eastern Latah County that we were able to create and work in. We just loved it.
Did you have time to watch TV? Anything else? You were so busy, apparently.
We
Yeah.
had a little bit of time. Jan and I used to trade back and forth when we had our kids. I'd stay home with them for a while, take off from work, and then Jan would work, and then I'd go back to work, and she'd stay home, and that type of thing. It's been a real good partnership for over 44 years.
And somehow or other, Sally became into being, right?
That is correct, in 1976.
Okay.
Yeah. First baby born in Benoit County, Idaho.
Okay.
January 1st.
What a memory.
Yeah.
Your phone name?
Paul Richard Eck.
Paul Richard Eck. And you have a nickname?
Pat.
Oh, how you come in? How did you get to that nickname?
Well, my mother wanted to name me Paul, and she won the de jure part of the equation there, and then my dad wanted to name me Pat. So I'm Paul legally, and Pat is what most of my friends call me, and I'd like you to call me Pat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's a high stroke. And religious, you have a religion or not?
Yes. Last time I did share with you that I was raised Catholic.
Been there.
And then went up to Beauville, Idaho, and we had a wonderful little community church there, Presbyterian church, that was right next to the school that I was principal in, and went there, and the people were so welcoming that it was just wonderful, and they did a lot of community ministry work, like food bank things. We used to share our building facilities back and forth between the school and the church when needed. Let's see. And they just really cared about people. When I had my heart surgery and that type of thing and went into an emergency situation, the people were there. They almost beat the ambulance to the hospital. So it's that type of thing, that sense of community is so important.
That
Yes.
supersedes organized religion label, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you talked about your education, and you don't work anymore, except what you're involved with now with.
Just social activism types of things. Yes.
Yeah. And your partner's here.
Yeah.
And you have a boyfriend too?
Do I have a boyfriend? No, I don't.
Doing how you are, these challenging questions that would drive some people nuts.
Now I'm getting a little scared.
No, I'm weird. You know how weird I can be. Just Sally, the only child?
No, I have one other. We have one other. Poppy.
Poppy?
Poppy.
So
Yeah.
a few words about Poppy.
Poppy is a fantastic young lady. She has been a delight. She is now living in Puerto Rico. She's married to a Coast Guardsman. She's a personal trainer. Has a bachelor's degree out of the University of Southern Alabama, I believe, in Mobile. She started the first Boys and Girls Club in the Coast Guard and was honored with that accomplishment. She was honored by the Coast Guard for that.
Oh, right.
So just very, very proud of her. Yeah, and she blessed us with a grandson, Gavin, a 4-year-old down there.
4-year-old. Does he like you?
He loves me. Yes, we play, we crash.
I got to make up for the smart ass question.
Yeah, you
Of
did
course.
a good job.
I could imagine he would do nothing less.
We certainly have a good time.
Yeah. Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, you mentioned those before. Cite just a couple of them to illustrate your social activism.
Okay. I'm a member of the Oregon Retired Educators Association. I'm vice president of the Unit 1 in Portland here, and second vice president in a state organization. I'm a member of the Multnomah Grange, number 71, which is a delightful group of people that I'm the lecturer of the Grange Hall. It's just east of Gresham.
Yes.
I just joined.
You're still joining?
Oh yes, yes, still joined. Our groups, we have a little group that we set up, the Angry Grandparents Against High Stakes Testing, and we've affiliated with Oregon Save Our Schools, and we've also affiliated with Parents Across America, and we're working right now, my wife and I and Deb Mayer are working on setting up a chapter for Oregon, and Oregon Parents Across America.
Okay, we're going to stop you there because at the rate you're going, we won't have time to talk about the subject.
Very good. I stand down.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admire or look up to. Name a couple of them.
I brought
Yes.
this fella. Jan sent me a YouTube on this fella, and I really would like people to take a look at this fella. His name's Pasi, P-A-S-I, Sahlberg, S-A-H-L-B-E-R-G. He's a Director General, Ministry of Ed for Finland. And that fella just knocks it out of the park in regard to what works in education. And I'll try to work some of what I learned from him this morning. I'll try to work some of that into what we're doing here tonight. Okay?
You may mention his name and spell it again so people can Google it to see what he's talking about.
Pasi, capital P-A-S-I. His last name is Sahlberg, S-A-H-L-B-E-R-G. He is well worth taking a look at. I came out of there just elevated off the ground this morning when I watched his program.
Who else do you look up to who's still alive today or from the past?
I look up to the Pope. I look
The old one or
up
the new one?
to the new one.
Yes, of course.
I look up to Wellstone,
Paul Wellstone.
Paul Wellstone. I look up to the fellow that wrote the People's History of the United States.
Oh,
Howard Zinn.
yeah.
What's his name?
Howard Zinn.
Howard Zinn.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are people that I look up to. And there's some fine women also that I look up to, like the new council member up in, city council member up in Seattle.
Seattle, yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Socialist
Oh,
city
yes.
councilman
Yes.
in Seattle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, again, we're going to be in trouble
Positive
tonight. We're
women.
going to have to sing Kumbaya before it's over.
Okay. Sounds good.
So let's move on to be sure we get to hear from Jan. When did you meet this guy?
Let's see. I think it was 1968 at the University of Idaho.
Yeah. Do you have a religious preference?
I do. Well, no. Yes, kind of. I'm a practicing Christian,
Okay. Capital C or small c?
small c, because
So am I.
I just follow the philosophy and try to do what is good for all people.
Yeah. Okay. You're nodding your head too. That seems a fit for you too. You don't work anymore, do you?
No.
Except the
Oh,
kind of
yes, I
stuff-
do. I work every day. Women work every day, all the time.
Boy, that's like wrong. Probably a friend of Ellen DeSmeal of those people. Memberships, political, social, civic organizations, other than the ones that Paul mentioned.
Let's see, Working Families Party,
Uh-huh.
the Independent Party. Gosh, I'm trying to think. There's
Oregon
so many.
Progressive Party.
Yeah.
I'm a member of that one.
Let's see, the Democratic, little d, of course, East Side Democratic. And just, there are numerous organizations that I can't.
Social activist kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Human decency and love and
Definitely.
all those kinds of good
Definitely.
things. Yeah. And persons from the past alive today. One or two names come to mind for you.
Oh, that are alive today. I have a really good friend named Karen Eggers in Beauville, Idaho, who has been a social activist all her life, that works really hard and feeling the needs of other people, you know, when nobody else is there for them.
And you've known her for a while.
Oh, yeah, for about 20 years.
You talk to her now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Hi, Karen.
It shows in your eyes.
She's great. She's great.
Yeah.
And
Anybody else?
gosh, too many.
Yeah.
My family.
Yeah.
My family.
Yeah.
Sally, Poppy, Pat.
Okay. So we want to save enough time for you because you've heard a little about her from him also. But let me ask you a few questions.
Okay.
And your formal education.
My formal education consists of two bachelor's degrees from Portland State University, one in sociology and one in women, gender, and sexuality studies, and a master's in education with a focus on adult learning.
Wonderful. Yeah. Occasionally I slip and sound sexist, and if I do, kick me under the table and I'll apologize. I've got a lot to unlearn from early 30s New Orleans.
Well, it takes our whole lives to get this way, so it's going to take our whole lives to unget this way. So we just have to work together to figure that out. It's all
I'm
right.
still learning.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's great.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
That's the way it should
Do
be.
you still learn anything? Or you do?
Absolutely. She kicks me all the time.
Is that what those bruises are? It's wonderful to keep learning, isn't it?
Yeah,
Keep
yeah,
growing.
it is. And if I say anything sexist, you feel free to interrupt me as well.
Well, you can turn the
Yeah.
tables on me. I deserve it
Yeah,
for all these
yeah,
years.
we've got it. We've got
Well,
it.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Persons from the past alive that particularly you admire or look up to? Any names come to mind?
Well, when you're asking that question, I think my parents are a huge influence for me, very much so. Also, the late and great Rosalind Farrington, who was faculty and one of my very best friends from Portland State University in Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies. And I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to meet her, but she was extraordinary scholar and activist, and definitely community leader. Yeah.
You ever talk to her anymore?
In my mind. She passed away a year ago.
Okay.
So I miss her very much, but she still inspires me daily.
Did she know that she inspired you?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. And I have a lot of colleagues in my department who I look up to and who are a great influence on our students and on me.
Would you take a chance in listing a few and not feeling the others are feeling left out?
Well, you know,
You don't have to.
Marlene Howell, Roberta Hunt, Vicki Reitnauer, Lisa Weasel. We have really, really wonderful people. My kind of the head of our department is also named Sally. Sally McWilliams is a really wonderful leader. Yeah.
All right.
I'm surrounded. It's great.
So we're doing pretty good with the bio section, so we're going to allow a good amount of time to talk about the subject some more. Let's take a little early break here so we can gather our wits and go into the second half. The song will Okay, we are back. Thank you for staying tuned. And for you people who are goofing around and tuned in in the middle of the show, you're watching Conversations with Dr. Don. It's one in a series of ongoing 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like my guest this evening about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about. And we've talked about a month ago, high-stakes testing and things related to it, and it was so interesting and so delightful till we decided to have you guys back on again. This time you brought some reinforcements.
I did, yes.
So let's pick up where we left off, and maybe you will give us a few words of summary about what we talked about in our meeting last month.
Well, last time we began the conversation was laying some groundwork on what high stakes testing were, and we had Dana Kelly Brenner here with us.
And she was delightful.
She was a very and a parent, and she was well versed in early childhood education, and she started to say a little bit about what types of impacts this testing were having on kids and families and on schools. You asked her a very astute question, I thought, when you said, well, you're sending your children to a private school, aren't you, a private charter school? And she said yes. And that caught my attention because why is that? You know, why is that? Why are you doing that? And she came up and said she would prefer to send her child to a public school, but things are happening. Education's changing now. and people aren't really waking up and realizing on what's happening, and teachers are having to do things that they don't want to do.
Yes.
Principals are having to do things that they don't want to do. School boards, superintendents, or local leadership, they're doing things saying we have to do it because the state says and the federal says, and they're telling us they'll withdraw money. And so we were laying the groundwork on that. And hopefully this time we'll start honing in on some of the things on the costs, the direct and indirect costs, and some of the stories of actual impacts, the human part of it, and part of what can we do about it?
That's
Because you see, I can sit here and complain for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, but all of a sudden you start saying, okay, here we go. Now, what can we do? And what I hope we can say is there are things that we can do to stop bad policy. And then there's things that we need to do to start looking about equity, start looking at getting all people to the table and respecting them, and getting those things going. We can build a heck of a nice, we can build a wonderful educational system. Our schools were not perfect before No Child Left Behind. I understand that. But we were given a line through the Nation at Risk, which has been debunked by the Sandia report, which was shelved by the government as they were looking at taking more and more control and that type of thing. And then corporations started taking a look and saying, ooh, we can make a profit out of this.
profit.
And that's some of the largest union membership is in the schools. We don't like unions. And so all of a sudden you have a camel that started sticking its nose underneath the tent. And now the camel's almost in under the tent and there's still the tail out there. Well, we need to grab that tail and give that camel a little boot and start making things, start changing it around.
We have not one X, but 3 X tonight. And as we said last month, we're going to need 3 hours to cover what we're going to continue on tonight. It's just delightful and interesting, and you're so thorough in your research. So shall we move on?
Very good. Let's move on. Yeah,
Okay.
let's move on.
We got a series of questions here. Let's start with, is the juice worth the squeeze? I like that. What does that mean? Is the
Okay.
juice worth the squeeze? This is a question you posed.
Yes. Well, if you're going to make the effort, and that's the squeeze, what do you get when you squeeze? What's the results? What's the cost value you get out of it? Jan and I went to a symposium that the Oregonian put on about 2 weeks ago on test anxiety. And Representative
Ron Saxton.
Well,
Lou Frederick.
Lou Frederick was there. The head of the Stanford Children was there, and Rob Saxton was there. And the reason why I'm bringing up Rob Saxton is he made a statement there that I don't think he really, if he could take it back, I think he would. And they had a person ask him, how much is being paid for the Smarter Balanced Assessment testing? And he
Smarter
said,
Balanced Assessment Testing.
that's the high stakes testing now, grades 3 through 8, and then 11th grade. That's in place now. It replaces the OAKS test, the Oregon Achievement test. I don't know
I
what
can't
all
remember.
it stands for, but it's the OAKS test. But it's the new one is the Smarter Balanced Assessment.
Is that a better one than the old one?
No, and I can get into that, okay? But
Not too far.
let's talk cost. Let's talk cost, okay? You're kind of like me. You kind of head down another direction every now and then, so I'm going to pull you back, okay?
Of course.
And so
That's what I think I'm doing with you.
and you're probably going to do that with me too, which is great. And so Saxton came out and said in the last biennium, this state spent $27 million on the Smarter Balance testing. $27 million. That's 800 teachers at the average cost of a teacher's salary in the state of Oregon. $27 million. And then is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, the information that's coming out, I have a sample of the report, and this is a mock-up of a sample that came out on it. And I took a look at that and I said, this is a report home. This is what your child scored on these tests in English and writing and in mathematics, and it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm a trained educator. I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree, and I've set up testing programs for the White Pine School District in Idaho. This doesn't make sense. What caught my eye too, so that wasn't worth the squeeze. What caught my eye too is if you have questions about these results, go to your school and ask them. How much time do they have sitting down to people? If this is a confusing statement, how much more time does that put on administration and teachers when I don't think they can really explain what the heck's happening here? So the juice isn't worth the squeeze. That's the direct cost.
And what is the juice we're talking about? Success or a better school system?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's what you're hoping that you're doing if you're putting all this money in.
And that's the purpose of the testing.
Yes. And it should be
That's the
useful
juice.
on evaluating what we can do. You need to put the kids first in education. And so what benefit does this have when it's tested right at the last part of the school year and they don't get the results until like this month? What benefit does that have? Because the school year's already started. And then if you get results that just show bands and this type of thing,
So what kind of juice are you getting, if any juice at all?
That's
We're
right.
talking about juice. We
That's
want
right.
some success.
That's
something
right.
that we want.
That's right. And then next year they're talking about using these tests for 20% of teacher evaluation. And you see there's another cost because there's a statement that teachers pretty much need to teach to the test, or they will teach the test, especially if it's high stakes, and that's a high stake because part of their evaluation, 20%,
That's high
is
stake.
that's high stakes.
Because then
Yes.
we can eliminate those teachers who are not teaching to the test.
It can get that way. Yes.
So it's
It
going
puts a
to.
lot of pressure on them, so it changes your curriculum, it changes your method of teaching, it becomes more boxed, becomes more prescribed.
Is that what happens with privatized education?
I don't think you'll see Obama, nor Arne Duncan, nor Rahm Emanuel's kids in a public school. They're all in a school that has a well-rounded curriculum, and they aren't being tested like they are here.
So why are they embracing this approach and this testing system and high stakes testing? What's the real reason?
That's a real good question. I think that's multifaceted. In my opinion, what they're looking at is control. I think we're looking at a weakening of the unions. I think we're looking at privatization. Like Richard Murdoch. Do you know Richard Murdoch? Who that is? He's one of your buddies? What?
You're switching on me. I love it. Poke me.
I owed you one. But,
You bet.
but Richard Murdoch even said, education in the United States is about a $600 billion business. And so I want a piece of that action, so he bought into it. But now, as this is being rolled out, the Common Core state standards and the high stakes testing and that, it all was funded by organizations like the Broad Foundation, Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation. These people have pumped huge amounts of money into this. And they put money into the teachers union, gave them some money, and it all came about during the financial crisis of 2008, really gave them an opportunity because everything was crashing. We were losing our revenue streams. In Oregon, it was weakened by Measure 5. That weakened the revenue stream into schools. And I have a good friend of mine, I think I mentioned this the last program, was able to work his way into some of the planning for Measure 5. And one of the things there was to weaken the schools and bring up vouchers. So that's heading toward privatization.
Heading toward pretty close, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's it's scary.
So how much did these tests cost the state this biennium? Did the taxpayer get their money's worth? Did the taxpayers get their money's worth with the use of these tests?
No.
What's their money's worth?
What's their money's worth? What you want, what I want to pay money for is like there's an Alberta Assessment Consortium up in Canada. They do fantastic work. They get their teachers together, they work on genuine assessments where they're looking at portfolios, they're looking at work samples, they're looking at presentations and that type of thing. There's a New York consortium also that was set up in 1997 that doesn't have to do the high stakes testing, because when they set up that consortium, they protected it. And that's way cool. If the state tries to change it, they have to do an in-depth audit of that program, and they're not going to do it because it would cost them too much. But they're doing the thing where they connect with the community. They bring people in from the community to help assess the kids and see what they're doing.
I'm aware of how much time we have and how many more questions we have. So we're going to have to abbreviate some of your answers. Mom, can we hear from you regarding this question? And then we'll go to Sally.
Well,
Is
27
the
million.
juice worth the squeeze?
Well, when I see the children, being squeezed, I've heard so many stories about, kids, well, you're thinking about a computer system that's supposed to hold up for everyone, right? And so they get in and test, and then if you're too long on an answer or something, that's gone, and then you have to redo. So there's so many things that are wrong, with the testing in itself, because you close down your libraries, you close down your computer labs, you've got the learning potential for kids is stops. And then you have another thing we were talking about the other day, which is really interesting. We were in McMinnville, and a parent brought up the point, well, what if I opt my children out of the test? Now, what are they doing when everybody else is learning about how to take the test?
This is McMinnville, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, go ahead.
And
we're around the world with this show.
And so, what does my child do? Do they just sit there, because everyone else is learning about how to take a test? So their learning time for math or English or history or something else is gone.
So they're learning how to take tests rather than the subject that they're teaching,
right,
or talking about.
And so there's so many things, that are wrong, that make certainly not worth the squeeze.
Not worth the Sally, what do you got to say about this?
Well, I don't think it's worth the squeeze, because I think about the inequity of schools in our school district as it is in Portland Public Schools, in terms of resources and talking to former students of mine who are now teachers and who has access to what in lower income schools. We don't need to spend money on tests. We need to spend money on teachers so that the numbers aren't so high in those rooms. And so we have more access for more students to get the support, the learning support that they need. And so teachers feel supported too, so that they don't feel overwhelmed by really, really full classrooms and outdated supplies and materials. And I mean, there are many challenges with using our money for tests, that a test that hasn't even been validated. In lieu of all these other things that are pressing.
Now, how is it they're administering a test across the board that hasn't been validated? How is that happening? How did that happen?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm. So, somebody's got some pretty good, talking about juice, behind the scenes here that has us administering a test that hasn't been validated. It's a simple question. And okay, some of your super rich friends are behind the scenes manipulating and pulling the strings to make
Oh,
money.
Oh, yes.
I interrupted you.
No, yeah, I mean, no, you're right. I think that's the test itself is costing us a lot of money, so somebody is getting a return on that.
Yeah.
And you know and I had some students who were doing in their undergrad were saying that they were going to be working in the summertime grading some essays that were on some of these tests, and I was like, well, what's your training like? And they're like, oh, we just have to be in college and know how to read.
That's
And this is the
So-
qualifications for
Yes.
grading
Can I
these
interrupt?
tests?
yes.
They
yes,
promised
of course.
us that the people that would score those tests had a bachelor's degree.
So, you know, and my students were on their way to their bachelor's degree and are smart and lovely. But I don't know that
the
that's,
depth.
you know, but when we're looking at a test that's validated, what we're looking for is people who have a trained eye and who've been paying attention to how we might really read these things to be able to have a full perspective of what a child is capable of. And this is not obviously demonstrated by somebody who doesn't really have any training but can just read.
And so much of these
Right.
things, when you look at it closely, it's so nonsensical in terms of
You could do it. You
justice.
could go on Craigslist, and Pearson hires people to grade the tests. So
Well, and you're smart and lovely, so maybe that'd be
Yeah,
fine.
and you could
but
do
you
it.
know,
Who are you talking
who
to?
else are they going to hire, right? Who else are they going to hire?
Oh
So
my God!
and it's
You
kind of
know.
like a little sweatshop.
We're laughing about it because it's
Oh, my.
probably
Because it's
if you laugh,
ridiculous.
you'd
You have to
cry.
laugh.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah. Shall we continue?
sure.
Surely.
Don't call me Shirley. I'm You're next. What harm can high stakes testing do to students, teachers, schools, and communities? I think we're touching on that already. What other thoughts do you have? The harm being done to students, teachers,
Well,
schools, and communities?
You know, I can start by, I was talking to one of my colleagues at Portland State who has some children in school, and I said, so are your kiddos opted out of the tests? And she said, you know, honestly, I wish that we could do that, but my kids, I can't do that because my kids are already a little bit awkward and have a hard time fitting in, and if I ask them to do something that the other kids aren't doing, they feel that much more singled out and feel that much more not a part of things. And so they're taking the tests, even though our family doesn't agree with these politics, because my kiddos are already having such a hard time fitting in.
Peer pressure.
So it's very complicated to try to get, to try to think about what these tests are doing to young people and teachers and families.
Any more thoughts on that?
I talked to 3 junior high students down at McMinnville, and I was going out to my car to change out my sunglasses to my regular glasses, and I saw them reading the sign that we had in the back window that Jan put in there, and it says, schools for students not for profit. And these kids were over there reading that sign, and I said, what are you doing by my car? You know, they looked up at me and said, what does this mean? And I said, and then they went on and said, is this that stupid test that we have to take? And I
Stupid
said,
test.
well, do you mean the Smarter Balanced Assessment? He said, yeah. I said, yeah, that's part of it, yeah. And they said, boy, that's stupid, it takes up time. I said, what would you rather be doing? And they said, we'd rather be learning something that we can make use of later in life. Those kids are smart.
The outcome of schooling in other industrialized nations around the world is not the same as the students that are finishing school here in the U.S. or in Oregon.
The outcomes? It depends on how you look at it. If you take a look at the international testing and adjust those test results by, if you pulled the kids in poverty out of that, we rank right up there with the top test takers. But like the professor from the University of Oregon, Dr. Zhao, he looks at you and he'll just say, high stakes testing, the results, and this ranking, international ranking, says, so what? We have a lot of we have a higher number of Nobel Nobel Prize winners. We have the most productive workforce in the world. If we had broken schools, we wouldn't see that. So what, he says.
But somebody's making profits.
Big time profits off of this. That's up over $2 billion a year, I think, in profit.
Well,
it's a shame. So.
And, you know, our students are held hostage because schooling, public education is compulsory.
Yeah.
So if you have to go, then of course it's a good investment to send for hedge fund people and other big business, because there's a population there that has to be there.
And and it's tax dollars they get. It's our money. It's not.
So we're looking at harm
So-
to children, the stress factor, stifling creative learning, reducing teacher learning time. In Oregon, we're down to 165 days on the average in this state, and that's 15 days less than the national average of 180 days, so that's 3 school weeks. We're reducing available money for certified librarians. Last year we were down to 144 certified librarians to serve 1,250 school sites. Back in 1985, there were over 800 certified school librarians. Oregon, now listen to this, Oregon was involved in a study of 17 states, Oregon was one of them, and they showed by their research that certified school librarians do impact school achievement in children. It makes sense. Also, you have the privacy issues that our kids could pay a heavy price because of the data mining that's going on, and the Pentagon's being hacked into. Are we going to be able to stop, manipulation and that type of thing, and control what the usage of this data? Now, with the teachers, they're being forced to teach to the test. It's taking away professional decision making. It's a morale buster. Also, the VAM, values added measure, that 20% of the teacher evaluation next year, that's totally unfair, and it's mind-boggling to me on that. And it's hurting our schools by reducing the school funding, and it mislabels successful schools as failures. My school in Beauville was the first failing school under No Child Left Behind. That school was not a failing school.
Well, we're going to move on, because toward the end I'm going to ask you a question or two about what we can do collectively and individually.
Sure.
But let's move on to the other questions here.
Okay.
What are the day-to-day impacts on kids, teachers, and students from high-stakes testing? I think we talked about that. You talked about, tell us about HB 2655, the so-called opt-out bill. What is the opt-out bill?
Sure. HB 2655 is the Student Assessment Bill of Rights. It has 2 major parts.
That's Oregon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in Oregon. And Lou Frederick was one of the key people to get that passed, and the governor signed it. And it has 2 parts to it. It expands and clarifies the opt-out rights, and also it improves student privacy. So to us, our way of thinking, that's a win-win. This allows us to get a chance to actually perhaps slow down the high-stakes testing, the impact of it. If we can slow it down, that's going to help to get it moving in a more positive direction.
So a parent can say, I don't want my kid to take this high-stakes testing.
That's right. Up until this law, they were allowed to opt out only for 2 reasons, according to this state: religious purposes, or disability. Now, starting in January, they can opt out for any reason. If they just feel that this is what they want their child to do, this is best for their child, they can do it. And it requires the Oregon Department of Education to develop a standardized form that will be used throughout the state, where up till now it was just a hodgepodge of paperwork.
And Sal, you were saying a minute ago that if a kid opts out, then he or she is going to be stigmatized because they're strange or weird. They're not conforming to what everybody else is doing.
Right, potentially. The other thing that happened to one of my friends did decide to opt her children out, and her son was a gifted and talented student, and he was targeted by the administration. They went to him and said, "You have to get your parents to opt you back in. We need your brain in this."
Yeah.
You know, and to put that pressure on a fourth grader seems like really unethical. So he was up at night and he was crying and it was really hard for him, and you know, and it's not this is not the way that schooling should be.
And I've heard stories about people that wanted to opt out because of religious reasons, and the principal would say, "Well, tell me your religion," and so it's like they would decide, and so it's
Constitution.
tell me your religion.
What?
It's the religion of no testing. And so you have these,
getting the drift.
until the principals and the State Department of Education get it that they have a plan devised to make everybody keep their dignity, you know, have the principals keep their dignity without having this cross-examination about why you want to opt out, and having children go through, you know, so much grief, you know,
And what a
about
job now.
deciding.
What a job now for the parents to have an additional burden
Yeah.
to prepare their children
Yeah.
for a functioning, just society, and teach them how to handle this kind of a rejection. And I won't go on with that anymore.
Yeah.
All right. What can people do to help protect our kids, teachers, and communities? Protect our kids, teachers, and communities from the harm done by high-stakes testing. What can people do to protect our kids and teachers? What can we do?
I mean, ideally, we would get everyone to opt out.
How do we do that?
Well, we have to inform people that that's an option, for one, and help people go through the process so that people can do that, and then get them to tell all their friends and all their family members. And if we could get entire schools to opt out and resist the test itself, then it would be moot.
You're telling me and us, tell the viewers what you just said. It needs to be sure that they get it.
Okay. So the idea would be to opt out. Get all of your friends and all of your family to opt out. If we had every school completely opted out of all high-stakes testing, then the test itself would be moot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you look
Starve the beast.
Okay.
yeah.
And, you know, it wouldn't be good for capitalism either. So,
I've been avoiding showing my true political colors, but you introduced it. Monopoly, crony
That's right,
capitalism
that's right.
Yep,
is the
that's
enemy,
it.
bottom line.
and, you know, the monopoly on a compulsory education system is egregious.
Well, you're going to vote for Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders?
What do you think?
No doubt. You're waiting for Kumbaya? No doubt. Okay.
There's some other things that we can do too.
Of course.
Real practical thing would be for parents and citizens and kids to write the governor, Kate Brown, and thank
Of
her
Oregon.
for signing the House Bill 2655. Thank you, Kate, for doing that. We really appreciate it.
And
that
Lou
allows-
Frederick for being taking it to the floor.
My grandkids wrote a letter, and I wish I had that with me. It was great. Another thing is to look at some of the websites that we had put up on the last show. Fair Test, you can Google that. There's a lot of information in there.
And go to Don Baham YouTube and look back, and you'll see that show's there if you want to watch it to be sure what we talked about last month.
Yeah. And then Oregon Save Our Schools has a lot of information in regard to the Oregon fight, that we have a small core of real intelligent and very dedicated people with a lot of energy, and we're just doing whatever we can to stop it. And then if the public wants to, make sure that you see the documentary Education, Inc. On October 28th. We're going to do a public showing. It's going to be for free at the East Precinct Bureau of Police Community Room, 737 Southeast 106th Street.
That's in Portland.
In Portland, right
Oregon.
across from the East Portland Community Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great film. It shows what's happening, and we that's what we did down at McMinnville. We facilitated after that documentary, and the people said we did not have an idea that this was coming down the road.
My gosh, if we get destroying or impacting our educational system, it's just so fundamentally important.
Yeah, like I said, we weren't perfect, but let me tell you, what's coming down the road is going to be way worse than what we have right now. There is an opportunity. You got it. You know, your glass is half full or half empty. You have to look at it from maybe a positive way. Is, well, now we can really look at equity issues. Over in Finland, that's one of the main things that they look at. The statement of Pasi Sahlberg is investing in equity will improve learning for all. That's what they believe in their heart, and it shows in their scores. And Pasi also came out and said there are wrong policies for whole system reforms. And then he just cut the United States education, this germ, he calls it the Global Educational Reform Movement, germ, that's setting in place everywhere. 53% of English teachers say that they want to resign within 2 years. 53%. That's germ. It's infecting the whole
world.
The whole world. Trans-Pacific, TPP. Look at that. All those things, they all join together. So it's that capitalism that you were talking about. Yes, this has taken us down.
Is this a continuation of the original revolution we had in this country? FDR tried to advance with the Second Bill of Rights in the 30s.
Yeah.
And we're talking in a global sense. What are human beings about besides taking care of the community and loving each other and providing the means for having an accessible, enjoyable, caring for each other life?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
People aren't smiling like they used to.
yeah. Okay, where can we go to get additional information on testing and other reforms? Where can we go? And I don't have a slide for that, but can you say a few words about that?
Surely. Some real good places for additional information. On testing itself, it's Fair Test. This is an organization that for over 30 years has really been looking at all kinds of tests that are given in the United States and writing up reports. So they have a lot of information there in regard to summative testing and formative testing. So Fair Test. You can Google that, hit that. Another real good place, if you want to get active in this and you want to take a look at some tools, some toolkits, go to parentsacrossamerica.org.
parentsacrossamerica.org.
That's a real good place, and they have a toolkit in there. And Defending the Early Years. And I don't have a website in my mind on that, but Defending the Early Years have a toolkit also that has good ideas on how to get the word out, how to hold house meetings, and how to write letters and that type of thing and take action.
To have our country be what it purports to be. Our country, and I won't go any further than that, because time is running out now, so we're going to have a closing comment about anything that we talked about tonight or anything else on your mind. Take about 20 or 30 seconds and tell the viewers anything that comes to mind for you right now. Shall we start with you, Jen?
Oh, of course. I'm just going to encourage everyone to get involved with their schools, go to your school board meetings, talk to your kids about what's going on, and really make a difference, because you can make a difference in all kids' lives. just by listening to them.
That's critically important, I'm sure. How about you, Sally?
I would say that high stakes testing is an equity issue and a social justice issue. And the sooner we start as a collective caring about those issues, those matters, the sooner we'll be able to actually act collectively to make things better for each other.
Yeah.
Okay. We save the best for last.
Okay.
Don't poke me anymore.
We have
Please.
each individual has a sphere of influence. You have a sphere of influence. Please use your sphere of influence. When go talk to your neighbors, get informed, get active. If we don't do it now, I don't know what we'd like to see this bad policy fail early and fail cheap, is what I say. And teachers can't do it. It has to be the community, especially parents and guardians, that need actually to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is another enjoyable. You're going to come back on again when we got some more stuff to talk about?
Absolutely. I have some thoughts about myth busting, and I have some joyful things to share about education in the United States. It isn't all doom and gloom, so I'd like to share some of that.
I've enjoyed myself this evening, and I hope you have too. And look forward to the next episode of the Eck Family and their associates. And PSA is public service announcements. We always have one or two. To learn how to end corporate personhood, go to that website, www.movetoamend.org, and end corporate personhood. Corporations are not persons, and money is not speech. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, I've been a member for 30,000 years, and I'll still be a member before I die. We've got to save our civil liberties there seriously. And I got to say good night. Thanks for watching. Remember KFC, you've heard it 1,000 times. Not that KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And you too. And you too. And you too. And you too. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Good night.